What's going on, everyone? This is Zen here, and we are back with another episode of Powers Discussed, where we discuss the powers of the great, the awesome, and definitely the weird. So, we are discussing the powers of a character that we don't really hear that much often, and he is a Marvel Comics character and villain, and his name is Vermin. And some of you might know him as Ratman. So, just to give you a little synopsis on who he is technically a super soldier who was created by Zola, right? Aram Zola. And we know Aram Zola is that big face that's in a robot body. And yeah, he's really smart person, right? So basically he created a super soldier serum, but this version of it basically spiced DNA and featurettes from a rat, right? Turning um, our character that we're discussing today into a rat-based humanoid character. So what are his powers? So he has the physicality of a rat, right? In terms of like nails, the tail, and everything of that nature. So that gives him the aesthetics and the abilities of what a rat would be, right? Um, but on a larger scale, when we think about a humanoid based rat, number one, that's pretty scary. Number two, that means he has some kind of enhanced strength, speed, and also senses, right? That go along with what a rat would have, right? And just in case you're like, oh, well, rats aren't that strong. Now, when you think about a rat, right? Rats are able to bite all the way into metal, right? So imagine a version of that on a gigantic scale. Now, Vermin's other powers include the ability to control, right, and have some kind of rat telepathy with other rats, right, which is pretty cool. Now, on a surface level, it sounds scary. It does sound scary. But also, if you think about the wide range of abilities that you could do with the manipulation over hordes of rats, then you could get into some really cool espionage missions or just being able to protect yourself in different ways on an offensive and defensive level, right? Now, one of the side effects that come with him being this rat like humanoid, um, humanoid type figure is that his cognition, right, or his intelligence was lowered, right, which is the part that I would say is actually the weakness. And the reason why I'm saying it's the weakness is because if he still had his prowesses, his mental prowesses, then he could really do those missions that I talked about, right? Oftentimes, when we do see Vermin, he is often just a lackey of a character, right? Or he's being used by any villain to go on whatever missions, but he's kind of like a brutish type character, right? Now, his powers were later on changed by Arcade. And when his powers were changed, it allowed him to clone himself. Now, this is one of the powers that I'm like, he didn't really need that, right? So he could clone himself and basically do the things that he would normally do. So he's a big version. He could, instead of having hordes of little rats, and he has hordes of big rats, right? Or himself, rather, which again is pretty scary, right? So if you're a person who doesn't like rats, this is not the character for you. But in a sense, um, he can be perceived as a powerful character, right? If written correctly. And I don't think he's been written correctly over the years, except for there are some books that he has been written correctly. But that's basically his powers, right? In terms of his featurettes as a rat, in terms of the abilities that a normal rat would have. But if you were to uh, multiply that into what would be a humanoid based figure, he has those, and his powers over rats, right? Coupled with his newfound ability, which is to clone himself, which is when we think about cloning himself and the abilities over rats, then it leads into something that I don't think was written yet. What if he was to clone himself on a kind of like multiple man, and then use all of those different facets to be able to control rats, right? Then you could have a whole army of them, right? Again, that is creepy, that is weird, but he can be a quite capable character if written and used correctly. But anyway, this is Zen here with another episode of Powers Discussed. I'm laughing because Vermin is a kind of a He's a creepy character. Let me know who you want on the next episode of Powers Discuss, where we discuss the weird, the awesome, the great, and whatever it is when it comes to the powers of specific characters. And we're not just limited to comic book characters of DC and Marvel, but also to anime based characters. So let me know. And remember, everyone, you have the power to shape the world around you and to help others around you. So go out and do that. Vermin.